What is your paranormal experience with a Ouija board? I bought one once. Found it in a charity shop for about £5. I didn't think that it would do anything, but I thought it would be a fun way to scare some friends and have some fun. So I took the thing home, and once it got dark, my housemates, Tom, Vicky, and Ellie lit some candles. I put on some spooky bullshit music on Spotify, and we all placed our fingers on the board and closed our eyes when suddenly there was a very loud noise. I mean an extremely loud noise, like something coming up through the ground. We all took our fingers off the board and it stopped. We all agreed the experience was a bit odd, but we chalked it up to coincidence and decided to go again. We placed our fingers on the board when suddenly a different noise started, like footsteps but deep, bellowing and loud, getting closer and closer to the house. The girls screamed, my mate Tom screamed, I screamed. We took our fingers off again, and thankfully, this new noise stopped too. But I was too curious now. The girls shrieked as I moved my finger once more onto the board, and nothing. I held my finger for a moment before looking at Tom, the girls, and bursting into a massive giggling fit. They all followed suit, and we howled with laughter at how silly we had been to believe that a Ouija board could have really done anything. And then there was a knock at the door. A booming, explosive knock. Then another. Then another. We cowered at the foot of THS stairs by the front door. Usually we would be illuminated by the streetlight coming in through the door, but all we could see was a large figure blocking the light. As I held my trembling hand up to grab the handle and seal our fates, I swallowed hard. I opened the door, and the figure leaned down to me menacingly, held the side of my head, and whispered, "I'm a need about tree fitty." Okay, true story. I was about 14. Found a board at a garage sale for $1 and figured why not. Got it home, and that night me, my best friend and my sister sat down and started asking questions. The marker moved around quite a lot even without us touching it. Thing was, we opened a door or something, because after that night until I was able to learn how to bless the house, something haunted us. After doing a bit or research, I found out the previous owner had mental health problems, and after a bad fight with his spouse he committed suicide by hanging himself in the walk-in closet in my sister's room. Once I was able to bless the house with sage, he stopped visiting, but it was a scary year between that night and me finally making it go away. We were doing one in year 4 to communicate with my friend's dead dad. There was a storm and the lights went out. We heard knocking and weird shit was happening with the electrics. The 4 of us, one by one, felt a hand creep down our backs. My friend heard, "Friend's name, it's me. Your father, I just wanted to say I love you. His dad did magic rituals and shit." Then lightning hit the nearby estate. The teacher found out and was mad. There was a burning estate, and it was apparently our fault. I mean, they did predict a storm. I grew up always being told to never mess with a Ouija board, so of course I was always very curious about them. When I was in high school, a friend of mine asked if I wanted to try hers with her. This friend lived on an old farm, and we set up the board in the basement of her 100-year-old house. We started asking questions, and a boy started talking to us. At first, we were asking silly questions, and he was answering in a similar fashion. He told us that he had died on the farm generations ago while working as a farm hand, something that was very possible. After talking for a while, we ended this session and went about our day. A few days later, we tried the board again. This time, the boy didn't seem to want to talk to my friend, only me. We thought this was strange, but kept asking our silly questions. The boy started getting mad at us. Up until this point, I was still pretty skeptical. I really thought that my friend was manipulating the whole thing to give me a good experience. As this boy was getting mad, her radio suddenly turned on in her room, and it was complete static, even though it was on a radio station that normally comes in clearly in her room. Then the smoke from the candle we had lit started rising up pretty far. We flipped out, put away the board, and never touched it again. I was convinced for weeks that I was going to be haunted by the boy. Played once in college. I forget exactly how many of us there were, but we had a good mix of girls and guys to gain a proper balance of energy. We go through the motions and summon someone named Hesh. Guy died naturally, according to the board, and we tested his authenticity. What are our birthdays? Favorite color, etc. But we're asking easy questions about the players. So, we decide to ask what color underwear is Daisy wearing. She's in the room just observing, just watching in horror as we slide across. Green. She screams, nopes out of the room, and we immediately shut down the game. We look at each other and freak at ourselves as no one was touching the game piece. We would be checking all game to ensure no one actually pushed the marker, and I know for sure I wasn't, especially when we were using the spirit with my personal questions. Never played again since. I refuse to. Piece of advice, don't do it. Here is my story. When me and my friends were young, 15 or so, we saw a local show featuring how Ouija boards work and experiences of people who used, us being skeptical morons, made our own Ouija board and decided to try it out once the sun sets. Fast forward to 11 p.m. or so of the same day, we gathered at my friend's house and tried asking questions. At first we were just goofing off / joking around, spelling out dicks, boobs, poop and other nonsensical things. After 15 minutes of joking around, one of my friends went full on serious mode and asked, IRCC, the board, what is the name of the spirit? The coin started to spell out Jack. Nobody was pulling pranks this time, the thing was really moving, everybody was starting to be scared shitless. We kept asking it questions until 3 in the morning, then it started to go hostile. Spelling out words like kill, murder, death and other similar things. Everyone freaked out and stopped, then decided to burn our handmade Ouija board, and we did. It didn't stop there. When we're trying to burn the thing, a random gust of air would appear out of nowhere to weaken the fire or snuff it out. Funny part was we're indoors trying to burn in at the fireplace. Then somehow the wind stopped. It took forever for the cardboard to burn, no idea why, but the cardboard refused to burn until we decided to add more things to burn with it until the board finally burned to pieces. And, after getting reduced to ashes, the thing was still persistent. The mystery wind came back, blowing the ashes / bits and pieces of the board out of the fireplace. We tried to sweep it out the house, but it kept getting blown back. We kept sweeping and sweeping until it stopped going back. It was around 6 a.m. in the morning when everything settled. Never messing with that shit ever again. I'm an occultist, which, by the way, does not make me a crazy guy who thinks he's Harry Potter, nor does it make me a witchian. It's more like religion applied practically. For all I know, it could be plain old psychology, but I think of it as more mystical. I used to use a Ouija board for communication with spirits, and it worked quite effectively. One of my best experiences involved talking with a spirit of air, which happened back when I believed only in the mental aspect of magic, and thought that the spirits I was talking to were just parts of my psyche. To test this, I asked the spirit to show some kind of sign of its existence, which I did not expect to manifest. When I asked this, a huge eagle, birds being part of an air spirit's domain, landed right outside my window, stared at me, really stared into my eyes, looked down at the board and flew away. Maybe it was coincidence, but I closed down the communication, did a rose cross banishing ritual and noped the fuck away from magic for a while. Good times. When I was 12 and staying overnight at a friend's house, we played with his Ouija board. The only question I specifically remember asking it was if my father would walk again. He was paralyzed during brain surgery that year. Board said yes, which turned out to be true, but I easily could have moved the planchette unconsciously to the answer I wanted. The weird thing though is that while we were doing this, my friend's big tomcat came over to the table, stood on his hind legs to get a look at the board, and started yowling. This was very unusual for him. He never showed any interest in other board games we played and wasn't a noisy cat in general. We yanked our hands back like we were touching hot coals, and the Ouija board got put back up in the closet, stat. I thought my friend was moving the thing, so I challenged the ghost to show itself outside of the game. I said, do something else. Run up and down the stairs or something. We were in the basement, and instantly heard loud, angry stomping on the stairs. Nothing was there when we looked. Eventually we ran upstairs and asked the rest of the family if they had come downstairs. When they said no, we asked if they heard that. They hadn't. In high school I knew a group of kids who were into ghost hunting. They would go to places that were known to be haunted with an Ouija board and try to talk to ghosts. They swore they talked to the dead, but no one believed them. One day they show up at school and show us this video on their Razr phone. It was a video of them at this old, haunted restaurant that had been closed for years. The video showed their Ouija board. They were all sitting around it when suddenly that triangle thing shot across the board by itself. We were all lost for words. There were 4 of us. I was around 16 or 17 years old when my friend came over and showed us the Ouija board he just found at a garage sale. Super cliché, I know, but we were all stoked to try it out. Went to my basement and started to set up. My basement had a dividing curtain to the laundry area. If you were near the laundry machines you couldn't see the rest of the basement. This is important. I started assuming I was being fucked with, so I stood up and went to the laundry area with a pen and paper. I wrote down the number 18 on this paper where nobody could see me. I then, word for word, asked what did I write down. I didn't say what number, I didn't say how many characters, just asked what I wrote. From behind the curtain I just heard the planchette moving, and all my friends at the same time said, 18. I just walked out and said, YEP. And put the paper down, walked upstairs and rarely went to the basement again. My mom's family had one when she was a kid. Large Catholic family, lots of kids. My grandma figured it was harmless, goofy fun. They had a lot of benign interaction with it, except for one day when it simply didn't seem to do anything. On a day when it was working, they went down the list of kids in the family asking the spirit if it liked each one. The answer was yes, until they got to my mom. Then it said, no. They asked why it didn't like her, and it spelled out, because of her name. My mom's name is Mary. In Catholic thought, Satan has a particular enmity with Mary. She, a mere human, was raised to power over him, and she was the instrument through which Jesus came into the world, so his hatred towards her is immeasurable. There are also many stories of people turning to Mary's intercession, asking her to ask her son, essentially, to escape Satan's clutches. Oh, and the day the board hadn't worked. Turns out it was August 15th, a major Marian feast day, in which Mary is specially commemorated in the Catholic liturgy. Needless to say, I've never felt the urge to touch an Ouija board. Me and 2 other girls were best friends at 10 or so years old. We went to one of the girls' homes to hang out. They had recently put her bedroom in the basement, and while it looked nice, the basement outside the room was bare/used for storage. It's hard to remember the details, but we got the Ouija board out and started messing with it. Everything got really quiet all of a sudden, and then the 3 of us received some sort of shock. A metaphysical shock is the best, most accurate way to describe it. We stopped playing immediately. The girl whose home it was wouldn't talk about it and stopped being friends with us. This is not me, but, however, I feel it's worth sharing. My late father was a priest, and in one of his parishes he was on first-name terms with several members of the local police force. He got a call from one of them one night asking him to come out to a house just outside town, where the police had gone to investigate what was called a noise complaint. Turned out that several young men in their early 20s had been messing about with a Ouija board. One of them ended up in a psychiatric hospital for the best part of a year, and my dad told me that when he stepped into that house he felt more scared than he had ever done before, even during his military service. He said a prayer in the house. There's actually a little book with it in. I got it after Dad passed away, and he told me that if I ever took one piece of advice from him seriously it would be to never use a Ouija board. I never have. Friend and I tried one when we were around 12 years old. She had been seeing an old lady watching her sleep. I thought it was just night terrors or something. So we are talking to someone with the board and ask it to do something besides answer questions. A little green army man that my friend had on her intercom flew across the room and hit my friend in the back. We threw it in the garbage and went downstairs to tell our moms what happened. When we came back, the damn thing was on her dresser. Fast forward 20 years. I was in town and her parents told me I could stay in her old bedroom for the weekend. I'm not ashamed to admit that I was a 32-year-old grown-ass woman sleeping with a light on. Just got here, but when I was in high school I bought an Ouija board from Toys R Us. Yes, this child toy store sold Ouija boards. I used it I think twice throughout the duration I had it. The first time was the night of prom where my group came back to my house afterwards for a sleepover and we used it in my garage. One question we asked which I remember perfectly was which order everyone was going to die. I remember who it told us who was first, and as far as I know that person is still alive. No weird things really happened that time. The second time I used it though, I was at a friend's house and it was me and two other of my girlfriends. We turned off the lights in her laundry room and asked some questions, which I don't remember specifically. All I remember was at one point we heard a loud noise come from upstairs. My friend's mom and her little brother were home at the time, but everyone was downstairs, so when we ran upstairs we noticed that one of the bedroom windows was shut when it was previously left open. So we were 100% done at that point. There was one night a couple months later where a bunch of friends were doing kickball at a local baseball field and I put it in my trunk and brought it with me. When I got to the baseball field I opened my trunk to take it out and it was literally gone. I have no idea where it went and to this day I never saw it again. My senior year of high school, I went with a friend to confront a spirit using a Ouija board. There were always haunting occurrences in the music and theater hallway. I had seen a ghost in the auditorium, sitting in the empty audience gallery. Anyway, the spirit came and said its name was Charlotte. She was hanged, lynched, for being a witch, right on what became the high school about 130 years later. Against my protests, the friend who brought me, as well as a couple of the people who claimed to be witches themselves, set about making a summoning circle to get this ghost to appear. Whether or not this would have worked, I sabotaged it so they couldn't summon her. Me and 4 other friends in high school were in one of the girls' basement. It was huge with a workshop, living room, a bathroom, and a couple bedrooms. We had a Ouija board one of the girls got as a joke. We put our fingers on the little thing and asked a couple questions and it actually moved but wasn't saying anything. Well, she had a thick door going to the backyard that had 3 locks on it. The one on the door handle and 2 deadbolts since it was a wealthy neighborhood in our town and her dad just wanted the extra deadbolt. All 3 locks were 100% locked as we had just closed it and locked it after smoking some weed outside. We asked the board if any spirits could let us know they were here. That locked door swung open so fast and hard it hit the wall and left a little mark from the door handle and all the lights flickered and the TV turned off. A door with 3 fucking locks locked, swung open. It didn't help that it was storming a little but we don't get huge storms where we live very often. Just your average thunderstorm. We put the board up, locked the door again, and all 5 of us slept on the couch with every single light on that night. I grew up Baptist and I do believe in evil spirits and such, so I was terrified and never touched a Ouija board ever again. It's been about 6 years now and I don't think I'll ever forget it or forget the fear I felt that night.